God questions. Honest answers.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of God Questions.
Honest answers.
This is Mark, I'm Ross, and we're excited to bring you another question today. If you've been with us on this journey, we've been trying to answer a lot of good questions.
That's right.
And we're just waiting on your questions.
Yes, email us your questions at Mark@Eddiehope.
Yeah, there you go.
So email them to me.
I love that.
Just
okay.
Mark@eddiehope.org.
There you go.
Send us your
I love it. Send us your questions. So we'd love to answer them.
Yes.
Whatever situation you got.
Yes. So today we have a question, but before the question, surprising new segment.
What is it?
It's this. It's called Ross, tell us a story about your kids.
Ooh, nice story about my kids.
Yep.
Okay,
anything exciting happening with Della or Baker?
Okay, yeah.
Tell us what's going on.
So my daughter Della, she's going to be 3 in December. Son Baker is 9 months old. I think the coolest thing right now is that my son Baker can crawl on all fours, so hands and knees, and he's wicked fast at that. So that's pretty fun. But the funniest thing right now is that because he can do that, and he's almost the size of a lot of rideable toys that my daughter has, she believes that she can ride him around the house like some sort of mule, or I don't know. And he's not very strong, obviously, being 9 months old. Nice. So we have to do a lot of, hey, stop that. Don't choke him out. Don't sit on him. Stop standing on him. Stuff like that. Nice. And she doesn't get to the point of really putting all of her weight on him. But it's she's realizing that he's moving and wants to take a ride, around the house.
That's awesome. He's quick.
So that's the funny story.
That's awesome. Yeah. As a middle child, I can sympathize with both of them.
Yeah, there you go. Right?
Awesome. All right. Well, that's been our segment of what's going on that's funny with your kids.
Thanks. I like that segment.
That's fun. All right. So now on to today's question. It's actually a 2-part question.
Okay.
So it's kind of like special 2-in-1 deal.
Okay.
So the question is, why do we sing at church? And the second part of it is, why, when singing, do some people lift their hands or kneel?
Oh, okay. Nice.
There we go. That's the question.
All right. It's been a great episode. I'm just kidding. We're going to get into it. So let's dive in really quick, though. I have one thought.
Okay. Yeah.
So singing, I think, is really unique even to our culture.
Yes.
So let's start with just singing. Singing has some sort of, and like songs have some sort of really personal touch to us. So you talk to anybody, they may, if they're into music, some level, they may have a song that really has touched them or they really love. Generally, people like music, like songs to some extent.
Yep.
And so I think to like my wedding day, we chose a song to dance to that we really loved, and it had this meaning deeper than just the song or the words and stuff. Because there's an emotional connection. So I think of singing in church similarly. Okay. And I recently just did a quick search, and in Genesis 4, so the very beginning, Genesis 4 is the first mention of music or song in the Bible. So if you go from front to back, the first mention there. And so it was interesting. So I think that singing and song has a lot to do with our faith.
Yes.
And then, but it also has a lot to do with our personal and our culture.
Right.
So
because I think part of the question is this, because I agree with you that songs have like a special meaning, and whether it's they help capture a moment in time or the message of the song is special, right? But then there's also this point of like singing collectively. If you're not in like a choir or a band, we don't do that a lot.
True.
Right? It's like, sure, maybe like when you're in school or like at like a pep rally or like a sporting event, like you like sing the fight song or like there's these great videos. I don't know why I watched this one, but like because I'm not a soccer fan necessarily, like I enjoy it, but it's not like the thing I follow. But I saw this video of the Portland Timbers, which is the MLS team. And they like, the crowd was like singing, and it's just like, that's cool. Yeah. Right. But that's different than church. So why do we sing in church? I think is the question. Like, because it's unique, right? Like, it's not like, hey, we're going to go down and go bowling, so let's quickly all sing before we bowl. Like, that's not like so it's kind of unique in that way in our culture. We don't sing. We let singers sing, and
it's
we
true.
listen to it on
it's
demand.
Very true. And that's unique, but I think that they've captured something, because you said it was special. Yeah. They were singing, and it was cool and it was special. Yeah. But it was for a sports team, and
Yeah.
not for church or for God or
Right.
anything. So it's different.
It is.
You're right. So I think that when we think of singing in church, it's very directly an act of worship and connection with God. So you think
Okay.
of like when we sing worship songs or we sing in unison, it's a moment for us to connect with God, to actually sing praises about his goodness. But also, if you think of some worship songs you might have listened to before, or if you've never listened to a worship song, if you just look one up and read some lyrics, typically they're about some reflection and then some maybe, reflection and just like a confession and different things like that.
Okay.
And so that's like an act to connect with God, but also lift up God's goodness and thank him for delivering such goodness to us, such blessing to us. And even if you look at some of the Psalms and stuff, it's awesome. So that's my first initial thought.
Okay.
What are your thoughts?
So no, I agree. Cause there is that thing, even in that soccer stadium, there's that unifying thing, right? They're all just like, or like at a pep rally or a football game, right? You're like cheering against the other side. There's the unifying thing, right? Like it's, as a church, we're all here together and we're singing together. But I think it's this act of worship. And that we see examples of, there's lots of examples of worship in the Bible where people are singing. And even there's this really funny story in 2 Samuel where David is bringing the ark, which was this sacred thing that God had given them as the people, and they carried it with them, and it got captured, and now it's brought back, and he's bringing it into the capital city. And as they do, he has all these people like playing music, and King David is like dancing, and his wife actually gets mad at him, and he's like, I'll make a fool of myself, because he wants to worship God. So I think there's this piece of that, and I do so. For all the people asking, what is worship? Like, just a quick definition. Ready? Go.
Worship is our way to connect with God through song and through music.
All right.
That's my quick.
That's a quick. All right. Awesome.
You quick
That's
for
good.
you.
Huh?
Quick for you. What do you think?
Ditto.
Okay. We're on the same page. That's so
there you
good.
go.
I thought you were going to come with something else.
Yeah,
that
I mean,
like,
I think-
missed.
yeah,
I
no,
thought
it's
you
true.
knew I would miss something.
You didn't. No, I think worship, and we could do lots and lots of talks about worship, because I think there's so much more to it, like serving.
Oh,
others to
totally,
be an act of worship.
yeah.
But in this context that we're talking about of singing, is it's this piece where we're praising God. So
now you know, if you go to a church maybe for the first time or ever, when they say stand for worship, you know they're generally, and they may be a church that has some other aspects of worship, like maybe reading or something, like reading God's word out loud or something like that. Generally that moment is now a time to connect with God through typically music and singing and community. So
and every depending on what church you go to, it may be it's like the church I grew up in long ago, where there was one lady up on a piano playing, and everybody just sang along, and we opened these books of songs to a certain one and had to try to follow music. Or a lot of churches now, there may be a full band, or maybe it's just one person with an instrument leading you, or maybe there's no instruments and you're just singing and they've got words for you.
Anyway,
and it's singing, and it's not about, I've heard a lot of people, they'll like to quote, quoting the Bible, make a joyful noise so I can sing as horrible as I want to.
right. Yeah.
But it really is. It's not about how good you are of a singer. I'm not a great singer, so I can't worship well. It's really about it's this heart thing of wanting to, using song, using words to praise God.
Yeah, so it's your heart and posture.
Yeah.
And we covered part one. We're kind of beginning to jump into part two. So what was that question again?
So the second part of it is, why do some people do things like raise their hands or kneel when they're worshiping?
Yeah. So if I can take a stab.
Ooh, let me hear you.
Okay, ready? Here's my honest answer.
All right.
I think they do because they want to. Just kidding. That's not only my honest answer, but they do want to.
It's true.
No.
Yeah.
No, but I think they do. Like, oftentimes we were just talking about the posture of our heart can be unseen sometimes, right? So obviously when we talk to people, the posture of their heart can sometimes be hidden or unseen from their intentions to talk with us or whatever. The same with worship. Posture of their heart is not so seen. And are they really connecting with God? Are they having a moment with him? And so I think when it comes to raising hands or kneeling, this is just another step in posture. That's not good or bad or right or wrong. Like, it's just a step that someone's willing to take to posture themselves in a way that would show their maybe devotion or their step in connecting with God and worship. So it's not this requirement or something weird.
It's like an antenna. So if my hands are here and I'm singing, it's good and God can hear it. But if I go like this, he can definitely hear because it's like sending up, right? It's fast. It's like, it's like 5G.
5G. But if you think, let's think practically though, because so if you didn't know, Mark is a chaplain of our local police department, PD. Yes. So he's got a badge and everything. We should probably show that sometime. This isn't the best episode for that, but either way, he's a chaplain, and so Mark, you've probably experienced in ride-alongs like one of the quick posture moves in policing. If you've ever watched Cops or 911, whatever the things are online. The first things they say is like, hey, if they're going to apprehend someone or if there's a situation where they need to see an act of surrender, it's to put your hands above your head, right? And this is that clear posture moment between a police officer and a person that please obey that. If a police officer is asking you to do that, please do that, because it's a moment that they're just trying to make sure that you're safe, they're safe, and it's a posture of surrender, right? Yeah. And let me go back. I know there's situations where in our culture today where that's blurry, and I get that, but just to the minimum, right? It's a posture of surrender. So don't take all that. But you hear that. Put your hands above your head. It's the surrender moment between a person and that. So I see it similar to God, but God's not saying, put your hands above your head right now. Put your hands up. Right. But it's this moment that we can show surrender to a God who has given us salvation by his son. And it's just this moment we can say, God, I'm yours. God, my life is yours. And it's like an outward posture. Right. That's kind of how I see it. Tell me if I'm wrong. That's my honest answer.
I think that's true. I think there's another part of it is not to change what you're saying, but I think it's to clarify. It's not the being commanded, put your hands up, but I think it's more of the response that when we really understand who God is and who we are in relationship to that, I think it's that natural response, right? When we I may think I'm a big guy. I'm not too worried about when I see smaller people around me because they're smaller than me, right? And I spend my life that way, right? And so I think of myself I don't scare easily, right? And so I can kind of think of myself as being confident and I'm a big guy, right? Not a big deal. But when I understand who God is, I am minuscule in comparison. And so I think it's that, and not just size wise, but in power and in authority. And so I think, and there's stories, there's really cool stories when you see even angels interacting with people in the Bible, the response of when they understand the power that they're in the presence of, right? Yeah, that's good. So it's this willful, hey, I want to show respect. And sometimes it's this, holy cow, this is crazy. That's a good point. And so there's the story of Isaiah in Isaiah 6, I think, beginning of Isaiah, when it talks about how Isaiah was called to be a prophet. And he says that he was in the temple and all of a sudden he has this vision of God filling the temple. And his response is, woe is me. Yeah. Right? And I'm uh-oh, I'm done for. And in the New Testament, the story that 3 of the disciples are with Jesus and they go up on this mountain and all of a sudden this is Jesus who they've been spending a couple years with, camping with, hiking with, walking with. Peter is challenged him a couple times, right? And all of a sudden Jesus is transfigured and they see his glory. And what's these 3 disciples who've just spent a couple years with Jesus, their response, they just fall on their face. Yeah. Right. And so I think, like you're saying, it's this act of surrender. It's just this whoa. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, that's such a good, powerful example. I think that's totally, and when you see people raise their hands or kneel, that's typically exactly where they're at. They're like, God's so good. And so I can do nothing else but surrender, but kneel before him because I'm experiencing his goodness, not only in my life through blessings, but also by the life he gave for mine, that I'm able to live and have eternity with him. And that's so unique and so good. So if you do it, then you're a better worshiper? Not the case. So let's finish with that. Let's actually address that. So what is the right way? What is the right way? Because I would say not the case. I think that it's really up to you. And that goes back to my answer at the first part that I was kind of making as a joke, but whatever you want to do,
But also, I think that does have a challenge to, in your moments of worship, is your heart postured to connect with God.
Right.
I think that's a great step you could take even today, tomorrow, as you turn on a worship song or go to church this next weekend, whatever. Are you looking to take a connecting step with God? And that can look like anywhere.
Right.
So,
and it's unique to each and every one of us. Like for some, like I like to sing and I can sing loud.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I get into into that point where I'm like, man, my heart's in the right posture, I shut up and I quiet down because I like to sing. And so in that moment, it's like quieting myself is a way. And so, and like, I have no problem again, and maybe it's my personality. Like I move all the time. And so when I'm singing, my hands are all over the place. For some people that may be like not the natural flow. And so it's not here's the right way. And in order to really worship, step one, put your hands like this, then you really want to worship more, then your hands go up, or just one, or then I kneel. But like that, it's what naturally flows out of that as we understand who we are and who God is, and whether that song that we're singing is us like talking about how great God is, or maybe it's about how sinful I am and how sorry I am, or what's the right response. And I think as you get into those moments, I think you follow that leading and do what's right. And there's no right answer. There's no right way.
Right.
It's about a heart.
Whatever way you can further connect. Yeah. So I would encourage you, wherever you're at, to jump into a time of worship with God, whether it's pull up a Spotify playlist or Apple Music. Sorry, Mark, an Apple Music fan. Or you head to church this weekend and join your church body in a time of worship. But wherever you feel led to step in and either use your hands or kneel or quiet yourself, whatever it looks like for you. Having a heart posture to connect with God is the biggest thing. So we would encourage you to take a step in that. But hey, thanks for joining us. Yeah. We're out of time. Any last thoughts or questions? Or no questions?
No questions.
Thoughts?
No questions.
Statements.
Now. Statements. Come back next time.
Okay. Can't wait to see you then. This has been God Questions.
Honest answers.
See you in the next one. Peace.